Councils, this is a special meeting of Council to determine our involvement or otherwise in the early stages of the 2032 Olympic bid. Meeting will in part be open to the public, but we'll be closing the meeting when we have our discussion, and the meeting will be live streamed. Can I thank all those who are in the room today and acknowledge everyone watching via Council's social media channels.
Bless you.
Can I begin by acknowledging the Aboriginal parties whose songlines traverse these lands we meet on today, the Western Waka Waka, the Guybil and the Jarrawa people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, for they hold the knowledge, the rich traditions and the bold ambitions of Australia's first people. When it comes to apologies, I believe we have an apology from Councillor Carol Taylor. Would someone like to move the acceptance of that apology? Councillor Shine and Councillor Carl. Those in favour? That's carried. Nobody wishing leave of absence? Nobody has any declarations at this point? Council, we've reached a stage where we need to close the meeting to the public. Would someone like to move accordingly, please? Councillor O'Hara-Sullivan. Seconder, please. Councillor Tim McMahon. Those in favour? Right, we live streaming? Thank you. Okay, councillors, it's over to you. Councillor Von Hoff.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I want to talk about the need to go into confidential because I believe that there is a principle of local government here that we very much need to consider, and that is transparency. And we are being requested by the state government that it be kept confidential, but our declarations are made to our residents, and I think that they have every right to know about some of the financial decisions that we're going to be making here. And for that reason, I believe that we should be discussing this in open session.
Okay. Any other comments around the room? Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Hara.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I just want to get further clarification. If this is a directive from the state for this to be in confidential, do we not abide by the state? Aren't we a child of the state?
We certainly are created by the state and rely for our existence on their willingness to allow us to continue to exist. All local governments in Queensland do. What is confidential here is the content of the documents that the state is asking the council to agree to. Other discussions of a broader nature about the council's willingness to agree to sign those documents may well not be confidential if you don't want them to be, because it's only the content of the documents that the state has asked us to keep confidential at this stage. So if the council has wished to open up part of their debate to indicate their willingness or otherwise for this city to be part of the team, then that wouldn't be contravening any request by the state itself, I wouldn't have thought. But if you wanted to make those documents public, I think it would be very prudent to obtain the consent of the state to do that, and I don't think that would be forthcoming at this stage for the reasons that the Mayor espoused in terms of the sensitivity about a bid process for the International Olympics.
So just follow up if I could.
Sorry?
Just to follow up?
Yes.
How do you propose, through you, Mr Mayor, to grant that we could separate the reason that we're here as opposed to the documentation that gives us the reason to be here?
It may be very difficult, Councillor, to separate the two.
Councillor Egan, then Councillor Tim.
Oh, thanks, Mr Mayor. While I appreciate the need for transparency and to take our community with us, I think if it's about what the financial implications for the council is, we already know that we probably don't know the answer to that. We don't have a finite number on that. But I think it is our role too in council to be aspirational and to be a part of something that's bigger than us. So, you know, we've been asked by the state to keep this confidential. So at this stage, I believe that we need to abide by that and to sometimes have a leap of faith, even though we're not going to know. We know we're not going to know the financial implications at this stage.
I think Councillor McDonald's question before is, where is the line drawn between what we can talk about, what we can't talk about, and the risk of actually exposing some of the information from within the agreement in terms of the way we're discussing it. So that's my concern about it. Councillor Tim.
Thanks, Chair. My comment was in line with Councillor Megan's. I don't feel comfortable having a report that contains some confidential information and having to draw the line in a public meeting of what you can and can't talk about. If the state government says, can this be made confidential, I dare say we abide by that. And I don't feel comfortable having some issues that we can, some issues that we can't talk about in a public meeting.
Councillor Summerfield and Councillor Von Hoff.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with some of the comments that have been said, but I think it's also important that our community knows that we have concerns, that we're not just going to tick and flick this. And I think the only way we can do that is to have this open, which is why I move that we come back out into open. I have concerns about what sort of commitment these documents are going to force on not us as a council, but our ratepayers. And we need to be sure that we can back out of this if required. And so I want to make sure that we're doing the right thing here by our ratepayers, because to date, the information that we have received about what spin-off or what events or whatever may or may not be held here is very few. It's quite limited. So we need to be careful what we're signing off on financially that's going to impact our ratepayers.
Councillor Von Hoff.
Thanks, Wendy. If you could just scroll up the screen a little bit with the reasons that are given. I want to clarify that the state has requested it's kept confidential. The state hasn't ordered us to keep this confidential, and so the idea that we have to abide by the state, that's not what's been put before us. It's a request. We do not have to abide. It's not an order. The state, in this instance, does not get to tell us jump when we say how high.
Perhaps if I could just offer some legal comment in relation to that. If the majority of the councillors did want to open the meeting to discuss the nature of the obligations that the state is asking you to decide whether or not you're willing to accept, it would be very prudent to contact the state first and make sure that they are happy for the council to hold those discussions in open, because there is an element of the law of confidentiality that enables a party who gives you a document on the understanding that you will treat it as confidential. It has the risk that the state could obtain a mandatory injunction to stop you from publishing that information if you so desired.
Councillor Cole.
Based on those comments, then maybe we need to seek some guidance from the state first. My reasons for that is once we sign a confidentiality form, and we all know as councillors around the table, with other major projects that have come and others that are on the books, we're not at liberty to discuss anything or divulge anything. And I think that is my personal view, not appropriate in context of the community understanding what our obligations or otherwise may be in respect of the games and how we're involved, to what extent. So we don't even have an opportunity to discuss transparently with our community once we sign those forms. So maybe we should seek some advice first from the state to ask how they feel about that. Because I put myself in a position where someone from the community approaches me and my statement has to be, no, sorry, we don't know the implications, which that's been clearly stated now. And I'm sorry, we can't even tell you anything about it. Reverse the role, I wouldn't feel very respected. Sorry, I think we should probably do as what's been suggested here by our own in-house advisor, senior counsel, that we seek some advice from the state before we actually decide whether we're going to have some in confidence, some outside, or whether we just jump in boots and all, sign a confidentiality agreement and we exclude any devolution of information to our community. I think that's probably most sensible, my personal view.
Any other comments around? Councillor Shine.
Look, my own view is that we should accede to the request to deal with the matter in confidence as requested by the state. What I'm concerned about is a couple of things. One is we have all been given a copy of the documents that have been included in this, and we're not allowed or able at this stage in an open meeting to refer to them as to what the risks and consequences of signing the documents in here are, because obviously you would have to reveal the contents of it, so we can't do that in an open session, so it makes it difficult. However, just in terms of the broader relationship between this council and the state government, if we think that it's a good idea to tell the state that, in Toowoomba we're different from the rest of the state in terms of how we relate as a council with the state government. And we think that that's a good precedent to set in terms of our future cooperation and requests for assistance in the future. Then I think that's wishful thinking. One assumes that all discussions at this point of time, at this early stage of the games, are confidential between, for example, the state and the Commonwealth. No doubt the Commonwealth has similar requirement of the state and the Brisbane City Council at this very early stage. I would have thought that was normal. Clearly, everyone would agree that the people of Toowoomba will want to know before a final decision is made as to what they might be up for in terms of cost. Nobody disagrees with that. But without referring to the contents of these documents, then I think at this very early stage of the game, we should comply with the request of the state and indicate that we are an enthusiastic, wish to be an enthusiastic participant in these games, rather than being difficult right at the start. It will create an impression of uncertainty at the very least in Brisbane, I would have thought, if we don't.
Any further comments around the room? I believe there are time frames around this as well for the initial bid. And Brian, you...
Seamus.
I understand the state's expecting councils to indicate their support or otherwise by close of business tomorrow.
Any other comments around the room?
A question,
Von Hoff.
please. Thanks, Mr Chair. Councillor Shine's point that there will be a point at which we can disclose costs to the public. I question if that's the case, if we were asked to sign confidentiality agreements or non-disclosure agreements. Grant, can you comment on that, please?
Look, I probably can't comment until we start asking the questions of the state as to what it is that they intend to classify as confidential or not. From our past experience, all I can say is that based on that past experience, they had no qualms with the council in question actually releasing financial information as to what costs had been incurred so that their public was informed. But that was as far as it went. It wasn't releasing everything that was in relation to a potential bid. It was quite a way through the bid in terms of just informing the community of what the ultimate costs were.
Any other comments around the room? Councillor McDonald?
I'll move that we go into closed session and continue the meeting.
Councillor McDonald has moved. Is there a seconder for that, please? Councillor McMahon? I think we've had the debate. Those who wish to go into closed session to continue the meeting? One, two, three, 4, 5, 6. So we go into closed session. Brendan? Well, the recommendation, councillors, it's no doubt before you that, where is that? We've got something on the screen. International Olympic Committee. 4 points there. Those points, are any comments in respect to those points? The first point, the International Olympic Committee decided on the 24th of... Is this actually what we need to talk about in the motion?
Yeah.
24th of February 21, that would enter the targeted dialogue for the Brisbane 2032 Committee, Australian Olympic Committee, for the future hosting of the Games. Proposed host of the Games, Brisbane City Council and the State of Queensland are required to demonstrate. This is background, isn't it?
Mr Chairman, it is very much background. That just is a prelude to the operative resolution, which is below number 4.
Just below. Number 4, the State of Queensland has prepared councils commit to providing certain services, venues, funding, contributions, Games and the Olympiad. So are the other 3 points below that included in the motion?
Mr Mayor, they are the motion. Those 3 points A, B, C are the motion.
They are the motion.
Mr Mayor, I'm happy to move. Thanks.
Councillor Megan O'Hara-Sullivan has moved it. Councillor McMahon has seconded that. Given the circumstances, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Carried without dissent. Thank you very much. Councillors, that brings the meeting to a close. I'll declare the meeting closed.